Okay, we can give it to them a few more minutes and to see everybody will be, go to the website. Okay, I think maybe they will come in later on. So let me introduce myself again. I'm Jennifer Lee with the Fidelity Title Company. And today I invite my sister company, IPX, 1031 Change, Ron Rakat, to talking about the 1031 Change. Ron be working IPS about almost 30 years, and he is the Bay Area #1 professional know about 1031 Change. He know everything. So after he finished the presentation, if you guys have any question, please ask him. Okay, thank you, Ron. Ron, can you stop?
I will. Thank you, Jennifer. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
One. All right, let me go ahead and put the screen up, and we'll talk about for about a half hour or so about 1031 exchanges and how you can not only do we want to do more about 1031, we also want to talk about how you can use this to get more business. I'm sure all of us want more business in real estate, so let's figure that out. So hold on one second. Let me bring up the thing here. Here it is. Okay, so let's start at the beginning. If you have any questions as we go, if you want to put them in the chat box, then we can address them afterwards. I've known Jennifer for, like I said, more than 20 years, and I've been doing this for a very long time. We are the sister company to Fidelity Title, and so we'll talk about 1031 now. All right, 1031, just to make sure everyone understands what it is. It's the part of the tax code that allows you to sell investment real estate, buy replacement investment real estate. And in doing this, you get to defer paying taxes on the profit that you make. So, for example, you have somebody who has a rental house in Cupertino. They want to sell that house and go buy a duplex. So you list the property, you call Jennifer to open the escrow. At the close of escrow, the money comes to a company called the intermediary, a company like us. Our job is to hold the money between when they sell the property and when they buy the property. And we are a required part of any exchange. So once the escrow closes, the money comes to us. You then help them find the duplex. We send the money to the title company on that side, and the property closes. In the eyes of the IRS, you've sold investment real estate, you bought investment real estate. And because you never touched the money, because we had it, you get to defer paying taxes, profit that you've made. Now, the term defer, it does not eliminate the taxes. So if you do an exchange, you sell the house to buy a duplex, later you sell the duplex to buy a fourplex. Now you're old and tired and sick of real estate and you just want to pay taxes. That's okay. Now you pay taxes, though, on the duplex and the fourplex. You are just deferring paying taxes. So some people will say, well, why bother? If I'm going to have to pay the taxes eventually, why bother doing an exchange? There are two reasons we always want our clients to do an exchange. Number one, I would prefer to pay my taxes tomorrow, not today. The way I look at this, if I'm avoiding paying taxes on $300,000, that's probably $100,000 in taxes that I would pay. And if I can do an exchange, that's the $100,000 that I don't have to give the government yet. And so I get to use that money to buy more real estate. So that's the first reason, is because you get to use the government's money for free. But the real reason you do the exchange is because ultimately you don't want to pay any taxes ever. And you don't have to, because sadly, one day we're all going to die. And when you die, you win. Well, when you die, your children win. Because when you die, whoever inherits the property from you gets what's called the step up in basis. That essentially means that the value of the property is reset to whatever the value is of the property the day you die. So if I buy a property for $100,000 many years ago and today it's worth $1 million and I sell it, I have to pay tax on $900,000. But the day I die, whoever inherits the property from me, their basis is the value at my time of death. So if they sell the property for $1 million, all the capital gains that I would have paid all disappear. And that's the real beauty of the 1031. Hopefully you never have to pay the taxes. Now, note something very important. This does not work if you are giving real estate to your children before you die, or you add them to title on the property before you die. This only happens if you inherit the property. So if you give the property to your children, you're giving them your tax problem, but not if they inherit it. Now, there's a term you often hear in 1031. That term is like kind. What you sell and what you buy are like kind. The answer to this is very simple, though. It's any kind of investment real estate for any other kind of investment real estate. So you can sell a rental house and buy a shopping center. You can sell a farm and buy an apartment building. You can even sell bare land and buy a rental house or shopping center or farm. It could be any kind of investment real estate to anywhere in the country. And you are still deferring both state and federal taxes, even if you are buying property in other states. So the term like kind is much more lenient, much more flexible than most people think. It's any kind of investment real estate. So residential to commercial to farmland, all okay. Now, I did say, though, it has to be investment real estate. So your primary residence is not investment real estate. Your primary residence is under a different section of the tax code, section 121. That says as long as you've lived in the property at least 2 years, you get an automatic tax break. If you're single, you get to keep $250,000. If you're married, you get to keep $500,000 tax-free. If your profit is more than that, then you pay tax on whatever that excess gain is. Now, in the Bay Area, especially where you are in Cupertino and that part of the market, if you've owned the property any length of time at all, your gain, your profit on your property is probably much more than $500,000. So a lot of people don't want to sell their house because they don't want to pay taxes on that excess gain. Is there anything else they can do? Yes, a couple things. First off, is there any portion of the property that they're declaring as investment? Do you rent out the basement? Do you have an ADU? Many of you as real estate agents may have a home office. Now, again, just having a home office or renting out the ADU isn't enough. You have to show it on your tax return. Now, ideally here, that percentage of the property that you are declaring on the tax return as the percentage of the property that you are showing as your rental or as your home office, that percentage of the sales price you can exchange on. So using an example, you're selling $1 million property, 20% of it is used for either home office or rent. 20% of the money goes into the 1031 exchange. The other 80%, they get to treat as their primary. So it's possible for a property to be both. Now, the truth is most of us do not have a home office. Most of us do not have a second home, or I should say a rental portion. So what do we tell them? What do we tell clients to do in that situation? Move out. Turn your house into a rental property. Now, after renting out the house for a couple of years, is your house now an investment? Yes. Is it still considered to be a primary residence? Yes, because it still meets the criteria of having lived in the property 2 of the last 5 years. So because of that, you get to take advantage of both tax rules at the same time. You get to sell the property. Let's say you sell it for $2 million. It's a married couple. They get to sell the property for $2 million. They get to put $500,000 in their pocket, and then they can do an exchange on the remaining $1.5 million. So it's a way to combine the 1031 with the primary residence. Now note, this does not work for everybody. If you need the money from your house to go buy a bigger house, this does not work. Or if you need the money if you want to go buy a primary residence, this does not work because, again, this is buying another piece of investment real estate. But if you have a client who is moving to maybe a retirement home, or maybe moving in with their children, or they have another house they can live in or go buy, then this is a good strategy for people who have a very highly appreciated primary residence. What other properties don't qualify for 1031? Well, second homes do not qualify. Now, second homes are a property that's used for you or your family, and you are not collecting rent. So now a vacation rental does qualify as long as you meet the definition of vacation rental, but a second home does not. Now, most of you think, well, I don't have a second home, but a lot of people do because they let their children live in a property, or a family member live in a property, or a parents, and not charge them rent. If you let a family member live in a property and you're not charging them market rate rent to the IRS, it is not investment real estate. So it does not qualify for 1031. So you have to be very careful about that. Also, flipping property does not qualify for 1031. You buy something, you fix it, you sell it to the IRS, they call that a job. It is not an investment. The IRS says a flip is a property purchased for resale, like a business, not property held for investment. Similarly, development. You can't buy a property, fix it, or build a house on it and sell it. That's called development. That's not investment. You also cannot exchange into any kind of partnership or syndication or anything where you do not have direct ownership of the real estate. Because in a partnership or LLC or REIT, you own a share of a company that owns real estate. That is not the same as owning real estate directly, so it does not qualify. Now, I understand there are a lot of newer agents on the call today. Some of you probably have never worked with a 1031 exchange before. That's okay. What is your role if your client wants to do an exchange? The answer is there's very little for you to do different. Everything about your listing is exactly like any other listing. Same MLS, same tour, same listing agreement, same purchase contract, same title company like Jennifer. Everything is exactly the same. There are only 3 things I want you to do extra if your client is going to do an exchange. Number 1, please make sure they understand the rules. I have brochures that Jennifer can give you. I have them in multiple languages. I have things I can send you in via the computer, via PDFs. You are welcome to give the client my phone number. We can set up a conference call. However, I can best help you educate your client. Happy to do so. Many people have very serious misunderstandings about what a 1031 is. And so that's why I'm letting you know that I'm happy to help you educate your client even before you take the listing, but please make sure they understand the rules. Number 2 is you do need to put something in the contract that discloses to the buyer that the seller is doing an exchange. So what happens is there's something called the cooperation clause, or sometimes you can use what's called the seller's intent to exchange addendum. You are just, again, disclosing to the buyer that the seller is doing a 1031. So educate the client, make sure the client knows what they're doing, and make sure the buyer knows that the seller is doing an exchange. And number 3, please remember to call me before escrow closes. If escrow closes and you have not enlisted the intermediary, then the client does not have a valid exchange and it will not work for them. So again, we have to be involved. But other than this, everything else about your listing of the property is exactly like any other listing. Now, once escrow has closed, the money from the sale comes to us as the intermediary. How long does the client have to buy the new property? The answer is very simple. They have to know what they're going to buy within 45 days, and they have 180 days to close escrow. 45 days to identify the exact property they're going to purchase, 180 days to actually buy it. Now, when I say identify, I don't mean a duplex in Cupertino. I mean the exact address to the property. Now, a lot of people are asking, well, do you have to be in contract by the 45? Technically, no. Technically, you have just given us a list of addresses. And I'll go over how many in just a minute. But you have to buy from that list. So if you identify properties to us and on day 47, all 3 of those properties are sold to somebody else, you're out of luck, your exchange fails. So for practical purposes, even in this market that's slowing down a little bit, you want to be in contract by that 45 days. You want to be in contract, your inspection's done, your loan approved, you want to be locked into a property. The only time the 180 days really comes in is if you're buying new construction. Otherwise, that 45-day clock is the critical one. Now, note also that the 45-day clock does start at the close of escrow. And the reason I bring that up is because some people are very afraid of not finding a replacement property in time. So my suggestion here is ask for longer escrow, ask for more flexible close of escrow dates. The longer before escrow closes, the longer before that 45-day clock starts. Now, how many properties can you identify? I don't want to go too deeply into this. Most people are going to buy 1 or 2 property can identify up to 3. If your goal is to buy more than 3, there are ways to identify more than that, but they are still limited in terms of how many properties you can. Again, I don't want to get too deeply into the rules about this, but there are limits as to how many you can identify. Now, next part that's important, how much do you need to reinvest in the exchange? And the answer is very simple. All of it. Not the profit, not the equity, everything. Whatever you sell the property for, you need to buy equal or greater to defer all your taxes. So if you sell the property for $1 million, you need to buy at least $1 million worth of property. You can buy 2 or 3 or 10 properties that add up to the $1 million, but you need to buy equal or greater to what you're selling. Now, can you buy for more? Can you sell for $1 million and buy for 10 million? Yes, you can. Can you sell for $1 million and buy less? The answer is yes, you can, but you pay tax on the difference. Sell for $1 million, buy for 900, then you pay tax on that $100,000 difference. Sometimes people are okay with buying less because they're okay with paying tax on a small amount. But the key here is if you want to pay nothing in taxes, you want to buy equal or greater to what you are selling the property for. Number 2, all of the cash proceeds, all of the equity that comes from the sale of the property, all has to go to the next property. Any cash left over, you pay tax on. The reason this is important is because you have to, if you're getting a loan, you want to make sure you're not getting too big of a loan. If you get too big of a loan, you're going to have cash left over. You're going to pay tax on that cash. So obviously, if there was a loan on the property, you need to replace the value of that loan, either with another loan or with your own cash. But to get to equal or greater, you have to make up that difference if the loan was paid off as part of the escrow. Again, anything you touch, you pay tax on. So the way I always look at it is this. Did you buy property equal or greater in value? And did you use at least all of the equity that came from this sale? As long as you've done those 2 things, that's the 1031 exchange. It's not that complicated. You're selling investment real estate, you're buying investment real estate. You need to know what you're going to buy within those 45 days, and you have to reinvest all of the money. Otherwise, it is not a complicated transaction. Now, what are some of the common problems we have? Well, first off, family. There are restrictions in the 1031 code when you're buying and selling among family members. So be very careful if you're buying and selling among family. Please call me. Sometimes you can do it. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes you can only do it if you follow special rules. But please let me know if anybody's looking to buy and sell among family members. Number 2, seller financing. Now, seller financing is not very common for residential real estate, but if you are working with commercial real estate, seller financing is very common. Seller financing and 1031s don't mix. Again, if your seller is selling a property and the buyer is asking them to carry back a note, carry back some of the mortgage, call me. We'll go over the rules about that. Third thing to be very careful about is who is selling the property. In an exchange, it has to be the same seller and buyer. If Jennifer is selling, Jennifer has to be the buyer. She can't give the money to her daughter to buy their replacement property. And where this becomes an issue is that people want to change the vesting before escrow closes, like dissolving a partnership or dissolving a trust or adding people to title. Any anything that's going to change who the taxpayer is, please call me. Even adding a spouse, even adding your new husband and wife is a problem. If you own the property in your name only, you need to buy the property in your name only. Do not add the spouse as part of the exchange. If you are working with foreign sellers, please let me know early in the transaction. It is perfectly okay for foreign sellers to do 1031 exchanges. However, they may be subject to FIRPTA by escrow. And that FIRPTA is something that the title company is responsible for, not us. So the key here also that the seller must have a social security number or tax ID number. If they do not, and then we cannot do their exchange. The reason I'm bringing this to your attention, if you are dealing with somebody who is a foreign seller, please let both us and the title company know as early as possible. There are some special forms they need to fill out and file with the IRS. But just because they're doing an exchange does not make them exempt from FIRPTA. So be very careful about that. Lastly, us as the intermediary, please remember that what we do is not regulated. And therefore, when you do an exchange, please make sure you are working with very large, very safe companies. We are owned by the same company that owns Fidelity Title and other title companies. You know, we are a very large company with hundreds of millions of dollars of bonding and insurance. Most small exchange companies do not have any protection, making sure the client's money is protected. So again, stay safe, stay with big companies. So one last part I will get into is, why do people do 1031 exchanges? And most of you think, well, you're doing exchanges because you want to not pay taxes. You want to defer paying taxes. And that's not true. The reason you do an exchange is because you want to buy something better. Now, what does better mean? Better means whatever the client wants it to mean. Maybe they want to sell their five property, or they want to sell one large property to buy lots of small properties. Maybe they want to sell small properties to buy larger properties. Maybe they're moving to Hawaii, so they want to move their rentals to Hawaii. Better cash flow. This is probably the number one reason why people do exchanges. In the last couple of years, we've seen a lot of people have very high appreciation in their real estate, but rents have not been going up until now. They have not gone up very much in the last couple of years. So because of that, we've seen a lot of people sell the property at a very high price and use that money to go buy property that they get better cash flow. Maybe they want to buy a house that in the future they want to move into, not initially, because they have to buy the property as an investment, but maybe they're going to buy in the property later. Maybe they are getting old and they're tired of managing properties, so they want to buy something easier to manage. The key here I want to emphasize for you is, when you are dealing with people who are investors, people who own rental property, you don't do an exchange to defer taxes. You do an exchange because you want to use that money to go buy a property that's better for you, property that more suits what you are looking for out of your real estate today. When you're talking to investors, don't focus on deferring taxes. Focus on buying something that allows you to buy property that is what you want out of your real estate. 1031 is a tool that allows you to get from the real estate you own today to the real estate you want to own tomorrow. And if you think about it that way, 1031 is a very powerful tool. With that, I want to leave you with a couple things before I go to any questions you might have. First thing is for you, especially for you newer agents, you are never expected to become experts in 1031 exchanges. That is not your responsibility. Just like you don't know everything about escrow or termites or maybe lending, your job is to be the best realtor that you can be. My job is to help you help your clients. So feel free to use me. I'm here to be a resource for you. And I'm happy to talk to your clients anytime. The second thing I will note is I do have a newsletter I put out on 1031 information. The last one came out on Wednesday. If you are interested in getting it, let me know. It only comes out once a month, and it's specifically about 1031 and tax-related information. I don't sell your information to anybody else. So if you're interested, send me an email, send me a text. If you want a copy of today's slides, you are welcome to ask for that as well. If there's any one topic that we talked about today that you want more information about, I also have pretty much a one-page PDF on every topic we talked about today. So happy to talk to your clients, happy to talk to you. I'm here to be a resource for you. And with that, I am going to stop sharing and see if anybody has any questions for me. I believe Jennifer is no longer on the line. So if anybody does have questions, I don't know if you're able to just unmute yourself and ask them, but I will give you the opportunity.
Oh yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I just have one question. You just said about the primary housing, right? When you say sell it, and if I got the, for primary home, you can get the, or married, you can get the 50K for tax free, right?
Right.
Okay. If for this way, you mean I see that from your presentation, you said you can keep the 50K in pocket and the rest to 31 exchange, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Now,
Now,
one thing to remember is if you're doing that, you are not just reinvesting the excess profit. You're reinvesting the entire sales price minus the exemption. So if you sell the property for $5 million and you're single, you get to keep 250, but the other 4.75 have to go into the 1031 exchange to defer the rest of your taxes. So, it's not just reinvesting the excess profit, but yes, that is a way for you to combine the 1031 with a property, or to combine the 1031 with the primary residence exemption.
Yeah, that's the first time to know that. It's actually it's a good idea. And therefore, if we say the primary home, you can do this one. That's good. Okay, good. Next time, then if you have something else, and then contact you. Yeah.
Okay, very good. Does anybody else have any questions that they'd like to ask? Well, you have my information. You are welcome to call me or email me or text me, however I can best answer them for you. Hopefully you found this thing to be very useful. And otherwise, I will. Oh, yes.
Sure. Can you share your contact information again? I did not get. I forgot to get a screenshot.
Okay. So let me give you my phone number.
I mean, I'm having no pen with me. Do you have any slides you can share with us?
Yes, I can share. I can share the slides. What I will do is the lady who sent me the invitation for today's presentation, yes. I will send her a copy of the slides.
Okay, good.
Share those with you.
Sure. Okay, good. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, good enough. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, very good. Kristen, did you have any questions?
I don't have any questions.
Okay, so you popped up. That's why I was checking. So I'll go ahead and send you the slides after the meeting. All right. Anything else I can answer for anybody? In that case, thank you very much for having me. Sorry?
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah.
Do you have any? Thank you.
Okay. I look forward to working with you. Have a good weekend.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah, you too. 张老师，等一下，如果他下来了，我把他的 contact information 给你。
好，谢谢。他讲的不错，好像比以前那几个讲的好。
对，但是今天没什么人来。
他们那些人以为可能就是老生常谈，我这个人讲的比较全面，比前面的几个人老练多了，因为他讲的这个，第一次我也第一次听到关于那种就是说，不是有一个50万的这个免税的嘛，对不对？但他讲的就是说，你这个50万你可以留着，拿剩下的钱你再做腾出地方一个陷阱，这是第一次听说。这个实际上是应该说是比较好的，因为你如果说，因为他那个